There is no substitute for hard work and dedication. First of all, let me say good morning to each and every one of you. My name is Mike Gibson. I serve as the California State Assembly member representing the 64th Assembly District, and I am so honored and blessed to stand here on this great day with each and every one of you to recognize the legacy of the late Honorable Dr. Mervyn Malcolm Dimely. As the first foreign-born person of African and Asian descent to serve as the California State Assembly member from 1963 to 1966. Then to be elected to the California State Senate in 1967 to 1975. Then to become the 41st Lieutenant Governor of the great state of California from 1975 to 1979. Put your hands together and celebrate just that. The Honorable Mervyn Dimely was elected to serve also in the United States House of Representatives from 1981 to 1993. But it didn't stop there. Mervyn Dimely still had so much to offer and so much to give to the people of the state of California. Merv Dimely ran for the California State Assembly and won in 2002 until 2008. Over the past several years, I have been working on this proposal to create a bust of the late Honorable Dr. Mervyn Dimely to stand to be erected here in the California Capitol. And I want to underscore that the state NAACP was with me 100% as I moved that bill through its political trajectory.
You can't have a statue or bus in the legislature unless it's endowed, it has insurance. So we need to make sure that all the T's were crossed and all the I's were dotted. But let me assure you, the bill sailed through. Anyone that had any reservations or gave pause once we talked about who Merv Dimely was, they were quickly with their aye vote in both houses. And I cannot forget, without the individual who affixed his signature on 2306, which was then former Governor Jerry Brown. Without Jerry Brown, who was very supportive all the way, we wouldn't be here today celebrating, unveiling the bust of Mervyn Dimely.
In the history of the state, there have been few folk who have done it any better than Mervyn Dimely. And being able to celebrate that legacy is an occasion that I could not miss.
Mervyn Dimely's legacy has certainly been fulfilled, and the ancestors are pleased with his activity, initiatives, and life pursuits, and those endeavors that represent the Dimely legacy are etched in the stones of emotional memory and legislative achievements for all Californians to see and bear witness to. Based on the depth of love for his community, the persistence of his legislative agenda, the authenticity of his relationships, and the quality of his service to his community, state, and the nation.
And so it was important to bring those who started with Merv Dimely in the Assembly and the Senate and Lieutenant Governor and member of Congress into the Assembly again, bringing all those former staff individuals to come back to the state capitol.
As I stand here today at this historical moment in time, there are so many thoughts and emotions running through my body. I met Mr. Dimely in 1961 when he was running for the Assembly for the first time. Mike, Assemblyman Gibson, I cannot begin to express to you my gratitude. And for the people of all of us who worked with him, we got all of our staff members, former staff members that flew up here today, for you to and Mr. Hertzberg to carry this legislation, to have this bus installed here at the state capitol. I recall back right after Mr. Dimely passed and we had his services in 2012, I was approached by this young man by the name of Najio Benz. I didn't know who that was. He kept calling me and wanted to do something for Mr. Dimely. He wanted to do a bus.
When I met Ken, he didn't know me, and I actually had to call a couple of times. But when I finally was able to meet with him, I said, this is what I'd like to do. And so Ken and I worked very closely over the next couple of months, and we were able to get overwhelming support. Martin Harmon, who was a very good friend of Mervyn Dimely's, and he came to me and said, this is good. What do you think of the idea of creating a number of these replicas and placing them in different places? I said, that would be fantastic, I'm for it. And the very first one, we were successful in unveiling at the Charles Drew Medical Center. And what we see today being unveiled is the 6 of 7 that were created. And this is the last public unveiling.
This is where he started at. Started here when it was a part-time legislature. Didn't have any staff. He and Gus Hawkins and Byron Rufford, they drove back and forth from Sacramento to Los Angeles.
46 years ago, as a young fella driving him around the state, we are all part of the family. I was 18 years old. I worked my guts out, there's no question. But I'll tell you, took care of me, didn't double speak, integrated his values with his actions every single day.
The number of legislators that turned out today, I think we had well over 30 members who showed up at some point today to witness the ceremony, witness the unveiling of this bus, but also to share their story and their connection to Merv Dimely, because he transcends 2 generations of California legislators, from those who were here from the 60s to the late 70s, and now in his second, act, so to speak, in the 2000s. So with some members here today that had opportunity to serve with Mr. Dimely.
I met Mervyn when I was a young teenager in the 60s, and I was so impressed with Mervyn back in that day, because we were young activists, Latino activists, Brown Berets, and this was prior to the East Los Angeles school walkouts. And I always knew that Mervyn Dimely was academician, and his whole priority was always, and his message was always education. And I was really amazed with him, and to see him in the Latino community and supporting a Latino candidate. And I said to myself, what is this man doing out of his realm here in our community? And it was surprising, the message that has always stuck with me through all the years. And that message that he delivered that day, and I was 15, 16 years old, and his message was that the problems of the Latino community were the same problems of the African American community and those communities of color. And if we all come together and stick together, we could overcome our differences, and we could make an impact on what the needs in our community are if we unite. And I never heard anybody deliver that type of message and that type of strategy, because it was a strategy that I think today needs to be reinforced again, because that needs to be reinforced every 3 to 5 years, and somebody needs to be hollering that message from the highest peaks.
I served with him in the assembly, and he and I were good friends. We had lunch together about once a month, and so I treasured his friendship.
I met the late, great Mervyn Dimely in the 90s as an undergraduate student, and I was looking to do some volunteer work in the community. He was our member of Congress, and surprisingly, my mother walked in to his office, and he was sitting at the receptionist desk, which is not very common for an elected official, but it really speaks to the kind of person that he has always been, and he's always been a person of the people. So my mother says to him, I'm looking to find my daughter an internship somewhere. Can, she come to your office and volunteer? And he says, of course, have her come in on Monday. And sure enough, I came in, I started reading constituent mail and responding to constituent communication. The congressman was very involved in passing legislation or introducing legislation at the federal level to help the Japanese community seek reparations. And so I was very impressed by that, because as I did more research into legislation that he was supporting, I found that Congressman Dimely was always a champion for underrepresented individuals.
What amazed me about him was his ability to put coalitions together. And I haven't heard people speak about that. But not only putting together the Black Caucus, but he would put together Latinos, he would put together African Americans, he would put together women.
First time I ever attended the Legislative Black Caucus was at an invitation of Merv Dimely. I wasn't even aware of what the caucus was and their annual policy retreat. And when he was chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, he made sure I was there and made sure I had a seat at the table and participated and was able to attend plenty of workshops. So I truly owe my political career to not only Merv Dimely, but Mark as well.
I want to thank him for founding the California Legislative Black Caucus. He's one of the 6 members who over 50 years ago had the vision to basically pull together those 6 members, those 6 African Americans who were basically in the Assembly, in the Senate, and began to form what we know now as the California Legislative Black Caucus. A powerhouse, a force not only within their individual districts, but a force that basically authors legislation that makes California a better place for everyone, including African Americans.
My dad was an internationalist, a globalist. He really believed in the unity of the people, we were all one people. He was a colorblind person. He was often thought of by conservative circles to be a black radical, but that really wasn't him. He was really about the people. He was about all people.
But I think what also needs to be mentioned is that he was status blind. Yeah, he didn't care if you were president or CEO of a company or a janitor in a building. He treated everybody exactly the same. And that is the one endearing lesson that I've always strived to emulate from him and watching him. I remember when I was in DC, actually talking to a janitor because I'd asked for directions, and he asked me, "Who do you work for?" I said, "Oh, I'm with Congressman Dimely's office." And he proceeded to explain to me that how lucky I was that I was working for him. And that if I didn't know how lucky, I would soon come to realize how lucky I was. And I have come to appreciate the valuable lessons and time that I had with him, because now I know how lucky I am.
I am so honored to watch Merv Dimely in his office and how he strategically, methodically made things happen. And I would go so far as to say, and someone can tell me, pull me aside afterwards, but nothing took place in Los Angeles in terms of politics unless Merv Dimely said it was okay. He had his hand on it.
Whenever I worked with him, I was pleased with the way he went about his business, the way that he made sure that people were comfortable with what he was doing, if possible, and that he always put the community first.
It is fitting that Cal State University Dominguez Hills should be represented among those entities bringing tribute today, given that the Merv Diamond African American Political and Economic Institute, led by our director, Dr. Anthony Samad, who is in the audience somewhere. I want to recognize Dr. Anthony Samad.
I was amazed when we introduced the concept, we introduced funding the Diamond Institute, that my colleagues at the budget who were Republicans said, oh my God, anything for Merv Diamond. And I was shocked. I should have asked for more money. But I didn't expect that reception. I expected to have to fight and tell them why I needed this money to honor this black man and this institute, this political institute at Cal State Dominguez Hills. And I got no resistance, which says when you live a life and you live it well, the whole world knows about it. And you don't have to sing your own song because others will sing it for you.
This is what this bust is doing, is it's really putting an imprint on the state of California by having a visual of who he is and what his contributions have been to the state.
This is a cat who is so dynamic, so personable, and I don't know if all that can be conveyed in a statue, but I feel immense pride because what it says is that, yes, I can.
It was important to have his family here. His family came from Trinidad and Texas and far and near to be here to see the unveiling of their loved one, their hero, Merv Diamond, his bust being unveiled here in this Capitol.
And let me pause for a moment, because we would certainly not be here today if it was not for this great family.
Mrs. Diamond, Alice Diamond, could not be here today, but she had prepared a few remarks that she wants me to deliver to you. Dear Assemblyman Gibson, my sincere thanks and thoughtful invitation to speak at the Mervyn M. Diamond bus unveiling ceremony. I'm honored that you would think of me. Your determination to reach the goal to have a bust of my husband installed in the California State Capitol is most admirable. This is a very significant accomplishment that undoubtedly required commitment and hard work on your part. I wish to extend you my deepest gratitude to you all. Please accept my best wishes from Alice Diamond.
I don't know well, maybe I do know what it means, because my father was a truck driver and he was always not home. But for Lynn and Mark to share their father, can you just do me a favor? Can you put your hands together like you lost your mind and let's give this family a round of applause. To the Diamond family. We salute you and we say thank you.
My father served in the Congress, but his first love was the California legislature. He produced many outstanding pieces of legislation, but this was his first love, and I can think of no greater honor than for him to be honored today and to have this bust in the Capitol. On behalf of my family, we thank you dearly. Thank you.
When the children come through and they see this bus, they know that black folks have been here, that we made a difference, and we will continue to do so. Thank you so very much.
So when people look on Diamond League Bus in the face, I don't want them just to admire the artistry of the sculpture. What I want them to do is to really embrace the principle and the legacy and the lessons that Merv Diamond Lee really taught everybody.
That bust cast in bronze is the epitome of his presence. And hopefully it will encourage them to do research on the gentleman, to find out exactly what he was about and who he was and all the accomplishments that he has had over his lifetime.
When I walk past that bus that will stand in front of the office that he once occupied as Lieutenant Governor of this great state of California, it will give me a sense of pride. I cannot wait to hear the child, the adult say, who was Mervyn Dimely? And someone tell the story that he walked among us. He was a giant among men. And someone tell the story that he was Lieutenant Governor. It gives me a great sense of pride because when I was growing up in Watts, knowing the name of Merv Dimely, and to have been in his presence and worked with him, my heart just fluttered with joy to know that I had a very small part in playing, because he actually wrote the script. And what I mean by he wrote the script to making sure that one day that people will continue to know his work and know his commitment to the people that he represented. And so I'm grateful the story will be told.